HG, I know the clock is for next week's event to start is moving quickly, and so we want to take full advantage of your time and thank you so much for joining us. Um, by ways of introduction, for our viewers and listeners who will be tuning into this after we publish the recording, I'm Sam Tolman. I'm Director of Energy Services for Green Power Technologies Puerto Rico. I'm joined as always by my conversation partner, Tom King, the founding director of Fundación Borincana that works on economic development and capital access consulting for energy projects here in Puerto Rico, as well as technical assistance for energy projects that are getting up and running. We are joined in a unusual pre-recorded episode here with HG Chissell. HG is the president of Advanced Energy Group, AEG, and as part of their broad portfolio of activities leads um, a Advanced Energy Week here in Puerto Rico as well as in other markets, and that's coming up this next week. We're recording this on March 5th, but um, all of next week will be occupied by a very robust calendar of conversations and panels and site visits that HG will be leading thought leaders both on and around the island. So HG, thanks for joining us. We're very happy to have you with us.
Thank you. And just to clarify for everybody, my last name is Chissell, just because don't want rumors to be started that it's Chissell. So happy to be here.
Thank you, and I appreciate the correction. Um, so let's start by just sort of a broader introduction of what is the core mission, independent of Puerto Rico, but just across your broad portfolio of activities. What is the core mission of the Advanced Energy Group of AEG?
Advanced Energy Group, the mission is to align critical stakeholders necessary for positive systemic change. The change that is needed at the metropolitan city level, or in some cases, the state level, but I really focus at the large city level and also vulnerable region level of, you know, leaders who want to deliver systemic change at the intersection of health, climate, equity, resilience. They're all committed to systemic change. But that systemic change doesn't happen in a vacuum or in a silo. It actually happens by breaking apart silos and finding alignment and an ability to move forward. And if you don't convene the right diversity of perspectives and ideas, it's very difficult to get the alignment necessary for the desired systemic change you want. And so our mission as Advanced Energy Group is to be that convener who can bring these groups together, these leaders, and then be that facilitator who can facilitate an effective dialogue that leads to understanding and alignment for collaboration and action. And then finally, I've learned that you just can't be a good convener or a good facilitator. You have to be a good coach, because if you do the first two right, people will feel inspired to do something, but they often aren't used to doing things together across public, private, and city groups. So you need to be there to help them move that forward. So that's our mission with Advanced Energy Group.
When you look at the different cities, or in the case of Puerto Rico, state level communities that you guys work with, where do you see the most positive movement towards a change that the stakeholders involved are on the same page about? One of these things is, and I ask in part because change is in some ways the means to the end, and in sometimes it's the end in and of itself, right? It's about starting the dialogue, it's about engaging in the conversation, and in other ways it's how do we define the milestones that we're working towards down the road. So when you think about the different communities, I know that you're in Boston, New York, Chicago. Where do you see this change or the accomplishment of that mission really taking a strong hold? And what does that look like?
I'll say where I see inspiring threads of action or of impact is where Leaders can tie a conceptual um, desire for a positive difference to a frontline urgent need. It is a unique leadership competency to be able to bring urgency into a conversation without causing panic or causing a pushback, because no one likes to feel pushed into something. But if someone can feel inspired from a place of compassion or concern to work better together for results that matter, then that's a different conversation. And so, where I've seen exciting impact is where a room full of leaders representing the private sector, the public sector, and government agree on areas of extreme vulnerabilities, areas where um, it truly is a priority to address finding a solution. So those are going to be areas where there is clearest examples of human harm, whether it's air quality, whether it's vulnerability to extreme weather events, where you have families, communities right alongside a body of water that could rise more than ever before in recorded history and wipe out an entire community, whether that's in the form of energy prices skyrocketing because we're not getting certain things right, so that families are paying 3, 4 times what they used to pay for their electric bill because gas prices have shot up. Those are things that I think draw people in and have them wanting to find a solution that can address that vulnerability. It translates into kind of real projects such as um, utilization of buses. If you look at communities where they're struggling to get access to jobs that pay more than jobs that pay in their community, the question is, how do they get to those jobs? Do they need to buy a car and have car insurance and then have to drive across town, through town to get to a job? Or could they rely on a bus that they could use and leverage transportation at a fraction of a price of having to have a car, and remove that poor air quality, that pollution from their communities? That's an example of why, for instance, in Chicago, why prioritizing a clean bus network can actually open up economic pathways to prosperities for communities that are healthier. Just one example that comes to mind.
Cool. Why Puerto Rico? You alluded to this a little bit in your answer, but Puerto Rico is not the only jurisdiction where some of these things are front and center of the conversation. Why Puerto Rico for the Advanced Energy Group?
So I had an opportunity to do a special workshop on resilience in Aguadilla, and I believe it was back in, I think it was 2017. I'll have to check. 2017, 2018, but it was right after Hurricane Maria, and um, the pain was just so evident, and the shock of being hit by such a massive storm, and an appreciation of vulnerability in a way you could feel everywhere you went when I was there in Puerto Rico. And shortly after, or around this time, I had an opportunity to be on a panel, an event in Miami, where I heard firsthand stories of people who experienced the death of loved ones, family, friends, the real hurt and anger about how that experience was downplayed, from the federal administration at the time, questioning how many people actually died when people had true, friends and family members who they knew, and loved ones up in the mountains who had perished. And when I was there in Aguadilla, it all just became very real for me to see vulnerability of fellow human beings first. And I wanted, at this point, I had been doing my work in major cities for a few years, all around how do you drive urgent systemic change. I thought I could be of benefit. I thought my approach to bringing people together to focus on collaborative action in 12-month sprints could be of benefit. I mean, the crazy thing about a hurricane is the reality is you know it will happen again. You just never know how strong the next one will be. And so you are constantly working against a clock. Like the game clock is always there. If the question is whether you lean in to embrace the fact that urgency is all around you to focus you towards collaboration and action or not. And so that was a reason for me to want to get more involved. And then later, what strengthened my commitment to Puerto Rico was how meaningful it was to feel like I was making a difference and being supportive to leaders I saw in Puerto Rico, not just at the civic level or the private sector level, but community leaders. I wanted to be a part of that effort to be of help. And that led to our first Puerto Rico Energy Week, which was actually just supposed to be a thought summit of my sponsors and partners on the mainland after COVID. But that led to Puerto Rico having leaders experience our approach to coming together in a workshop and encouraging us to open up what we did and have it focused on Puerto Rico, which we did, which expanded our thought summit into Puerto Rico Energy Week, which we initially did just for San Juan. But feedback from our work was that, we really appreciate your approach. It's collaborative, it's engaging, it's about accountability, but it shouldn't just be in San Juan. It should be in communities like La Margarita. It should be in the outskirts of Salinas. It should be at Castañer. It should be at Aguadilla. It should be on the front lines. So we listened to that feedback and we changed our format to make it a 5-day event, Puerto Rico Energy Week, and we started off being in community. So last year we were at Castañer. This year we're going to start off in Mayagüez and in Aguadilla, and then we'll go to Isabela, and then we'll come to San Juan. So I mean, that's been the process.
That's great. No, I mean, I think as someone who's attended and spoken and participated at past events, I mean, I know what a good job you do in terms of I call it outside in, inside out. You're bringing first of all some better practice and not kind of rolling over, working with people on the island and taking the lessons on the island and bringing them out so that it's a virtuous circle that you're putting together with the effort. And as the founding director of Fundación Borincana, I'm delighted to see you going into, and supporting communities that, we were working with. When you talk about Castañer, you talk about the Cooperativa and La Margarita. It's great, frankly, to see that the work that we're doing and helping people, develop, can be picked up and actually expanded into, examples, hopefully sustainable examples that can be repeated, through in other areas of the island and areas beyond the island, frankly, which is kind of the point. So, yeah, I mean, terrific group. I think it's great that you're getting out into the communities, and yeah, I hope it continues, and I hope people seeing this who haven't gotten a ticket will take advantage and go and I think only San Juan events are still available. I'll just put that out there for the audience, but
Right, Thursday
hopefully
and
you'll enjoy
Friday.
the days. Yeah.
Yeah, those are packed days though. Our Thursday is full, and I was just talking to one of our partners saying that we only have about 10 available seats left for those 2 days. We're not. I mean, I guess one message I would think is important to share is I'm not doing this to do a conference. I That's not my intent. That's not my motivation. I do want to create a forum where we can take a sense of urgency and transform it into action in a way that feels like greater, more effective teamwork. I think this is all about teamwork. And you can't be on a team unless you agree what winning looks like, right? And you can't be on a team agreeing what winning looks like if there's not a game clock. No one plays an indefinite game. There's a certain amount of time to every game. And so for us with Puerto Rico Energy Week, we picked 12 months. What is possible for us to accomplish if we are aligned on critical issues at the community level, at the municipality level, and at the island-wide level to address within 12 months? What is possible? What are those critical pain points, and what would be the best way to have impact on them in 12 months? That's our framework to inspire leaders to come up, not to go to a conference, but to actually want to get on the field together and play a team sport and enjoy the challenge, but benefit of winning at something that really matters. And Tom and Sam, I want to acknowledge that I hear such appreciation for the impact of what you do. And that's great. You know, that's what it's all about. When people say, no, they came into our community and they helped us do something. We know how vulnerable things are, and you've given greater resilience to communities through your efforts and motivation.
I think there's a
Thanks.
really important, yeah, thank you. I think
Yeah.
there's a really important piece here, which is acknowledging the challenges and recognizing that the resolution only, the change, the development of the solution, the teamwork towards the future, right, that we're pushing towards requires honest acknowledgement of what the challenges are in our not in our way necessarily, but in the path. Right. And that's something that I think that the Energy Forum and the Advanced Energy Group are really aligned in, is making sure that we can have a constructive dialogue, honestly, about what are the obstacles? How do we get over them? How do we do that so that we have more mentorship and have more success stories to be able to highlight in the future? I think,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Can I respond on that? Because I think you're absolutely right. And I think there's a next step there that I notice is a critical one to take. You can be aware of challenges, and the challenges can be an unending list, where we can find problems of why things aren't moving forward. But the problem is there's not one problem, right? If we don't agree on that next critical problem to solve within a certain amount of time, we don't get the power of focus on our side. And if we don't have that, then we don't know how to align towards an action. We can stay in the place of saying, well, look at that problem and look at this problem and look who's not doing this right. But that doesn't create a cohesive team. And that's I think the craft, the challenge, the leadership challenge is to aligning towards a critical thing to solve now on a topic in a certain period of time.
When you
Yeah.
look at the local Puerto Rican energy sector, what surprises you the most?
Okay.
Thought you frozen there for a
That
second.
was a good question. Sam asks good questions. Well, I think what surprises me is, and I would say the same thing about COVID for the mainland, as I would say for Maria to Puerto Rico. Here is an event, a devastating event that caused such damage, destruction, and impact. That was a real statement on vulnerability versus resilience, right? In so many ways, not just about the storm, but about the recovery, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was really an issue about health and the human being at the core of all of it, right? Human beings. What surprises me now is how that can start to get pushed to the perimeter of the conversation. When we get back into having a conversation about technical details, a number of kilowatts, amount of megawatts, interconnection, et cetera, which are all critical, important issues, especially from an engineering perspective. But if we don't create some way to have a scoreboard on these issues that's human-based, it's hard to keep everyone on the same page, right? This is where I see the fracturing with whether Luma is doing a good job or not. Do we believe that they're truly invested in solving these issues when you have another outage the next day? Or do we believe that, you know what, the motivation is there to figure this out, the ability to solve this in such a short period of time is unrealistic, but they are moving in the right direction. We have to somehow, I think, combine positive metrics of success to this conversation that people can get excited about. And where are those? You know, if you look at PR 100, PR 100 in my eyes was a kind of a scenario study. It was a scenario study of a what if we went to 100, right? But in the midst of that scenario was the issue of, are we truly there on resilience? Are we 100 on resilience? Because that is the story and memory that people have more than they do about becoming 100% renewable. They think about their aunt, their mother, their grandmother, perhaps who didn't get that life-saving service because there was no electricity, right? So how do we make sure those metrics don't get lost when talking about energy? That, I think, is an untapped opportunity to get people more engaged. And I think it's the hospitals, it's the health sector leaders who need to be in this conversation. That would be my first thought to your question.
We had a great conversation early on in the creation of the Energy Forum with Arnaldo Bisonó, who is with AES and is also with the Manufacturing Association's Energy Committee. And he made a comment that really sticks with me in almost all of the conversations we have, which is the most expensive energy you have is the power you don't. The most expensive
Yeah.
power is, the energy you don't have. And I think that, to your point, that is both in financial costs, but it's also in human costs, right? And so making sure that the power stays on and then working towards the additional goals of resiliency and environmental sustainability and all of those things are built into the model, but they're functions of whether or not the energy is there in the first place, right? And so making sure that that is sort of a first order priority seems to be where the island's general hive mind is, right? We need power. Then let's think about how can we improve on the system. Um,
Mm.
when
Yeah.
when you think about all the conversations you're having, and over the last several years of running these fora in Puerto Rico, what 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 perspective do you have that you think most people may not with regards to the energy sector? What are most people missing? As far as you're concerned.
Um, well, I guess that to pull more on the thread of, let's say it was, let's say, let's say you got it right, completely right. What does that look like in terms of improved well-being for individuals living in Puerto Rico, for Puerto Ricans? What does that look like? How can you quantify it? What are your measures and metrics that demonstrate true success? Is everybody on the same page? Do we all agree what success looks like? I think there's an area where we need to spend more time. And I say we because I'm invested in being a positive stakeholder in this. But there's a great area of opportunity to agree. And the number of metrics should be as few as possible, right? Right? It should be per capita wealth, let's say, savings. How many Puerto Ricans have the opportunity to save, right? What's the debt levels per capita? That's going to indicate that there's economic prosperity building. That won't happen, as your point, if there's a question around energy security. You can't have financial security. You can't have financial security, you're not going to have health security. If those could start rolling up
Yep.
into a dashboard of what success looks like, and here's my dream. If that could be GIS based, meaning that I could look at the 78 municipalities and be able to give a color gradient to which one was doing this best, now you create a natural sense of positive competition. Like, wow, I want to be like Isabella. I want to be like Aguadilla. Look what they're doing. Look at the leadership of the mayor, of the alcalde. He's doing it. He's getting the jobs. He's getting the health care. He's somehow strengthening the power security. That's the path that I think wins this.
Yeah. So can we bring it all? And I think I agree pretty much 100%, and very few people actually think that way. The whole idea about energy driving security, economic development, lack of energy. It's not the only thing, but it is the most important thing in the modern world, modern society. But can you boil it all down to you could say GDP. Maybe in Puerto Rico, it's levels of absolute poverty, right? So you could I mean, for a community that's kind of looking up longingly at Mississippi in terms of poverty levels, it maybe that's the best metric to look at for a period of time, right? Nothing is constant, but and if you can think about how do the all of these things we're doing impact each other, and how do they begin to bring people out of poverty in Puerto Rico, in rural areas, etc. And the way most of them do it today is leave, right? I
Right.
mean, you go to Orlando, you go to New Haven, Connecticut, you go to other Puerto Rican enclaves. Education is also a way out in Puerto Rico, which is terrific. But many people end up getting a great education and leaving the island. I know these aren't exactly energy issues, but it might be a way to filter back because, as I think we all agree, the first thing we have to work on, and it's not a serial thing, we have to work on everything. But I mean, the thing that we have to get right soonest is energy.
Yeah,
And
I think
I,
the yeah.
sorry, I just want to jump in here and push back, Tom. I think they are
Yeah,
energy issues. I think all of those are energy issues. If we start recognizing that energy is the number one input to the economy, and the economy, small e economy, right? It is my ability to keep my phone charged, and the groceries that I buy for my family cold and fresh, and the operating expenses for a business I may open, not being overburdened by an electrical bill. All of those are economic issues or excuse me, all of those are energy issues, right? And so without having that basic stability, it makes it hard to do the basic things that otherwise drive social health, community health, economic health forward.
yeah, I
And then
agree.
with
I think maybe it's a question of semantics, or maybe just the way I said the end. But there is well, if you look at the way that the NSA frankly looks at it, there's 19 basic things that are crucial to support kind of the modern society, and 18 of them depend entirely on energy. And frankly, I don't know what the 19th is, but yeah, absolutely right. Energy impacts everything.
just on that point, I agree with you that energy impacts everything. But sometimes when you start to see that, you feel less empowered to be able to do anything about it. You say, what can I do about whether or not that distribution circuit is working? What's my role in that? I have no power in that, and that leads to frustration and not empowerment. But if you can see that they go both ways, right? If
Yeah.
it, it truly needs to be like a closed circuit, right? You have to have it coming around because if you don't have the participation involved to understand all the components, that's why energy efficiency is so interesting. In part, that circuit is struggling because of energy efficiency, which is now in the hands of many people connected to the importance of good power, right? So it's important that if this is why I think if the energy conversation stays in a silo and doesn't permeate all the other critical conversations, it really makes it difficult for this to come together as a team sport. And that's, I think you asked me, my thesis is we win at this as a team sport.
I think we all agree. I mean, part of the whole thing about the Energy Forum is, uh, you know, alongside some of the stuff that you've already done, right? It's collaborative. It's bringing people together. It's hearing voices. It's an extension in many ways of what Sam started before the project with the Energy Committee in Invest Puerto Rico. But it takes on in many ways some of the elements that you have brought to the island. And we want to be here and doing it, 24/7, 365. And so, I think there's a lot of opportunity to collaborate on that. Let me just the the one answer like to the frustration about this isn't working, right? This isn't being helped. We need we need money in here. We need this transformer fix so we can open up this line so we can have resiliency here at one level. And that backs into no resources and not enough money. And oh, there's money from the federal government, but it's stuck. We need working capital. We can't get working capital until the bankruptcy is solved. And it's not just working capital, it's investing ahead in terms of the people and the engineers and everybody who can plan and do that. So it keeps getting backed up, and you feel like you're sitting here in the middle of nothing's happening, which is the experience of Puerto Rico. But I think one of the things that Sam and I and others keep trying to talk about is that isn't the only thing, right? Let's look at the proliferation of rooftop solar, right? The expression about water in a sidewalk, it'll find every crack. Well, we've got to look for the cracks, right? That's kind of what we're doing. Let's find the ways to open things up. Let's make progress while we can. And let's not only focus on this. Let's not forget about it. We've got to find ways to move things forward and talk about the bankruptcy and solving things and bringing people in. But let's also promote education and knocking down or addressing some of the barriers we can in microgrids and other things that we're working on. The circular economy, right? Nobody is focused on almost nobody is focused on the fact that we're growing lots of solar and batteries and other things, and we're actually creating a huge waste problem. And Puerto Rico already has a huge waste problem. So, what do we need to do to plan and think about that? We're only one decent sized storm away from having, estimates between 300,000 to 1.1 million damaged panels in
Right.
Puerto Rico. That's based on what's installed today. Now, you don't replace all of them, but you have to. And then when you take them out, what do you do with them? Right.
Hmm.
So thinking things
Importantly,
like that. Yeah.
importantly, these are opportunities for Puerto Rico to take a leadership role. And HG, to your point about feeling a little bit hopeless in some of those challenges, it's also one of the areas of supreme creativity where Puerto Rico has excelled. And Tom mentioned rooftop solar. I see that Adiel Morales is from 2G Energy is going to be participating in the activities next week. What industrial microgrids have done in Puerto Rico with regards to installing cogeneration. There's an opportunity really to highlight that we need the grid to be resilient and effective and cost efficient. And at the same time, there's a whole lot of folks that don't want to leave and say, if I'm going to stay, how do I make it work for me? And that's there's a couple of different models there, or parallel paths to success, we might say, that nobody has done quite at the same magnitude or different areas of creativity that Puerto Rico has. And that's something that is worth highlighting is, how do we look at you know, what you might say on the surface is a bad hand, right? How do we play the game with this bad hand? And it's like, oh well, actually, we as Tom mentioned, we can fill some cracks in really creative ways, and it's one of the reasons why manufacturing is still 47% of the local gross domestic product. So there definitely are success stories, and I think on that note, let me ask you a little bit about um, the 12-month goal type model.
Yeah.
You had this event last year. You have 12-month goals. We're coming up at the 12 months at the end of that process. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown of what were last year's goals and where are you with them? Maybe just a couple of highlights there.
Yeah, happy to do that. Let's see here. So as I mentioned earlier, we break them into three levels: community, municipality, and island-wide. So at the community level, we went and did our community action challenge in Castañer at the Centro Comunal. And there we talked about the challenge. The agreement among speakers and participants was the pain point to solve for was identifying by the community the critical loads within the community that most needed to be backed up, creating that community source resilience plan where they identified their greatest vulnerability points. And once identified, how do we make sure that those points have a priority towards being addressed? So we had the leader from one of the schools, we had the leader from the hospital in Castañer, we had Melanie Quinones from IREC, and that was a challenge. How do they do that? So what they agreed to do was look at creating a community microgrid business plan and framework for engagement with the community. This led to identifying what they thought, kind of surveying the community and what they thought were the most critical loads. Those loads then, were identified as being ones associated to water, making sure that there was reliable water to the community with pumps, identifying those community members that require electricity for life-saving life services, whether that was dialysis, et cetera, and then finding ways to develop those plans. So I reckon took on that approach to create those resilience plans, and they made a lot of progress on that. They had several meetings in the community over the year regarding that. We had an opportunity for her to present the work that was accomplished at the CESA Summit. At the island-wide level, we focused on dangerous illegal encroachments. The idea that people have built living spaces, gasoline stations right under, right in right-of-ways for critical power infrastructure that could create fatalities was the issue at the island-wide level. That was a challenge presented by, at the time, the Chief Regulatory Officer of LUMA, Mario Hurtado. He presented that issue. It inspired almost 25 people to volunteer to work on that issue throughout the year. It's resulting in a special component of our agenda for Puerto Rico Energy Week that will focus on visiting examples of dangerous illegal encroachments and talk about, so people can see firsthand why this is dangerous, and help figure out the best pathways to get communities to self-report on these areas to find ways to address them. So that was one on encroachments that we also did.
So
Yeah,
this is
super
gas
interesting.
stations being built under 38 kV lines, or
The pictures were so disturbing to see. You had schools right under power lines. You had gas stations right under power lines. Yeah, exactly. So there needs to be a path forward out of that situation. And part of it needs to, one, it needs to stop happening. There needs to be a communication for why this is dangerous to happen. So there's kind of getting the community support behind not letting, friends don't let friends or family don't let family build under dangerous power lines. And then when you do have this situation, finding a productive pathway to address it.
okay.
That's a fascinating challenge, and one of these things where you wouldn't, it's a fundament, right? It's a fundamental one that uh, kind of in some ways highlights the extent of the challenges that Luma has, that they're facing, right? And that's part and parcel of a very troubled grid that they inherited. Um,
Interesting.
HG, I know that we're coming up on time here, so I want to be respectful of your busy calendar. Folks who are interested in learning more can go to goadvancedenergy.com/PR Energy Week 25. The number is 25 there at the end, and find more information. The agenda is packed, super impressive. You've got folks from LUMA, the Energy Bureau, the new Secretary of Economic Development, Jesus Bolinaga, the president of AES, our friends Aliel and CP, who are working with us on microgrid work. Genera is well represented. Ivan Baez, I see on the calendar. Utility scale solar. Leslie is there. Mario Tomasini's going to be there. You've got a number of folks from the government. So we will make sure that all that information is disseminated. The tickets are running out quick, and so if you're interested in participating, and tickets have already run out, there will also be a green drinks where folks can participate. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
HG, thanks for putting the link in the chat. Go to the website, find their page on Eventbrite, get tickets, show up, be part of the conversation. And HG, the floor is yours for any final comments. Maybe where do we go from here? What are the next 12 months? Give us a teaser on the next 12 months.
Well, I mean, because we run Puerto Rico Energy Week as a series of competitions to kind of determine where we go, I don't know yet. But that's the exciting part. You don't know unless you're in the room and contributing to developing the identified 12-month sprints at the community,
Yeah.
island level, and municipal level. That's what I'm excited about getting involved in and finding out. But I do know that, if we agree on a critical issue and a path forward that would have greatest impact on that issue, leaders in that room are going to volunteer themselves, their teams, and resources to make an impact. They'll feel inspired. They'll hold themselves accountable, myself included, to make that impact we want to make. And that's what makes it special. That's why we just keep leaning into doing this. And I hope to see you there. I do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's have you back after the event, and you can talk about what the sprints are, and we can figure out. I mean, I'm sure that we're already looking at some of these things, but I think we're happy to see if we can't help shoulder some of it through the forum.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Winning at what matters most, nothing feels better.
HG, I know you're moving at a million miles a minute up until the event, so we'll end it there. And when you get a chance to take a deep breath at the end, we look forward to having you back. Thank you for being a part of the Puerto Rico Energy Forum, and we'll see each other next week.
I really appreciate it. Thank you both. Thank
Thanks,
you.
man. Have a great conference. I'm sorry
My
I'm
pleasure.
traveling, but
Sorry to miss you. Yeah, take care.
see you
Talk to you
soon.
soon.